So hi guys. So in this session what we will try to learn is, in the previous session we have learned about the component communication. So that is nothing but input and output, how we can component with the parent to child and child to parent. Okay. So now what I want, so now in this session what we will try to learn is, we will try to learn some of the topics which are present in Angular before learning the life cycle hooks. So before learning this life cycle hooks, that means life cycle methods or hooks or whatever may be, before learning these things in a component, first we need to know some of the concepts in Angular. Okay, so might be we will not using more often, but these are worth remembering these all things. So first let's try to learn about the view encapsulation in Angular. Okay, so view encapsulation in Angular. So let's try to learn about this one first concept. So in Angular, a component styles can be encapsulated within a component's host element. Okay, so that you don't affect the rest of the application. So for example, let's say that we will be having an user component in the app component.html. We have included this app-users, right? So now whenever you try to write the styles for this one, so now previously what we have did in the users.component.cs, so we have given a border for the dot box. Okay, so this class will be applied only to the HTML elements which are present in the users component.html only. So this will not affect, for example, let's say that I am having here a box. Let's try to make this one as a box. So I will try to make this one as a box. And we are also using the app-user. And in this app-user also, if you try to see, there is also a box. So that means we are having the same class name, that is nothing but a box, in the users component.html file and also in the user component.html file. So this is a plural and this is a singular. So this holds all the users information and this holds the single user information. So now the class, what is the class we have implemented? The class we have implemented only in the what I can say here, only in the parent component. So we have implemented the class, we haven't implemented the class in the styling in the child component, but we are using this class name. But wherever in the parent component also we are using this class name. Okay, so now let's try to see whether this h3 will get a border, and also here also for this one also will get a border or not. Why? Because we have written something like dot box, right? So let's try to see it. Here if you try to see, we are able to see the border only for the h3 but not for the single user details. Why? Because for this single user details also we have given a box. So here if you try to see, here we have given a class of box, and for the h3 which you are trying to see, here also it is having a box, but the style is applied only to this box, but for this class it hasn't applied. So what is happening here? So that is the reason what I want to tell you is, a component styles can be encapsulated. So that means the component, each component styles can be encapsulated, means it will be hidden. Okay, it will be hidden within the component's host element. So within that component host element, I will try to tell you what is a host element so that it will not affect the rest of the application. So for example, let's try to see. For example, let's try to see. So you know that this is total is an app users component. Here you will be able to see this one, right? App users component. So this entire thing is an app users component. And here if you try to see, these are the component elements. So app user, let me zoom over. Yeah. So here the terminology is what I can say is, this is a component. This one is called as a component host element. So that means the component which is the data which is hosting, the elements which are hosting in that component is called as a component host element. So this is called as a component host element. And these are all the components elements. And inside this div, if you try to see here, inside this div, you will be having again another component, app-user like this. So these are component host elements. Which component host element? There is nothing but an app-user component host element. So now if you try to observe here, okay, so whenever you are having this component host element, so this component host elements are encapsulated within the component host element. So that means this one, the styles which are implemented in the app-users will work inside this component only, and the styles which are implemented in this app-user will work in this component only. So this is what I want to explain you. For this reason, so component host elements, normally what you can be able to see is, So you will be able to see two kind of attributes whenever you in the DOM of running applications. Okay, so what it will try to do is the Angular, when it is executing, Angular pre-processes all the component styles so that they are applied only to that applied components view. So Angular, what it will try to do is it will pre-process the component styles. So whatever the component styles you have written, so it will pre-process those all the things in such a way that it will apply only to the components view. So in the DOM of a running application, elements belonging to the components have some extra attributes attached to them. So that means what I can say is, here in this component, okay, this component, this is the app users component. So in order to distinguish between this one, Angular adds the attributes to this one. So here it is called as an ng content jbr c13. So these are all the Angular attached, these are all the things. So this one is an internal behavior. Okay, the exact values of these attributes are private implementation. So these are automatically generated by the Angular. So you cannot target them using the class name. So you cannot use this one something like ng host like this. You cannot use this attribute, and you cannot apply this one inside your class files. So you should not apply it like this. Why? Because so these are private implementations, and we don't know that whenever we build it, so we can't expect that name will be always the same. So this is a private implementation of this one. So these are automatically attached by the Angular, these attributes. And after attaching to this one, Angular pre-process the styles. So that means it will compile those styles, and it will attach some of the data to our styles. Now if you try to see here, normally what you have, they will be having two types of attributes in an Angular. First one is an underscore ng host. If you try to see here, underscore ng host you will be having. So these are added to the elements that enclose a components view. So that means this is a component. So this holds the component, right? All the elements holds the component. This is the component which will holds all the component elements. So this one will be having an ng host. Nothing but what I can say is it would be a shadow root. So shadow DOM encapsulation, you can call it as. So shadow DOM implementation. So that is way beyond our concept. So we will explain, we will see it afterwards, say when we get a time. So this is a shadow DOM implementation, and all the elements which belong to this component, so it will be assigned with an underscore ng content. Okay, so this is an applied with an underscore ng host, and this is an underscore ng content. If you go here, ng content, so all the things will be having the same thing, ng content like this. Okay, now if you go here, so this belongs to this ng content only. Okay, so that is the reason we got it as C12. Okay, for this C12, and now this is also a shadow DOM host. Okay, so now hosting another component element. So that is the reason it has changed to CBR C11. So again, the elements which are having, they will be having underscore ng content C11 like that. So like this, the implementation will be going on. So now if you try to see here, the box thing. So you have applied a box, right? So dot box border color like this we have applied. Now this box, so I already told you that Angular pre-process our styles. So when you apply this one, okay, when you apply this one, ng content hyphen jbr c12 like this, okay, when you apply this one, Angular attaches the attribute name here. If you try to see box which is having an attribute, so this is called as an attribute selector. So we have already learned in the CSS selectors. So this is an attribute selector, dot box which contains of C12 attribute. So it will apply only to this one. So this is having that attribute, and whereas if you try to go to this box class, so this element, it is having jbr c11 instead of having this jbr c12. So because of this reason, that h3 is not getting applied to this element. So this is the way Angular differentiates the component style. So now if you want to apply this component style, for example dot box, to that component also, then what you need to do is, so you need to mention here also this one. For example, if you are getting duplication and all those things, so what you can do is you can remove this one. We already have a styles component, okay, so which acts as a global thing. So this is a global thing, so you can apply it directly here. Okay, so this is called as an view encapsulation. So now what I can say is, if you don't want this behavior, so that means if you are writing styles in one component, it will be restricted, the styles will be restricted to that component only, but you don't want this behavior to be happen, means, so now component in the decorator component, okay, in the component decorator, so it will be the component decorators provides an option that is nothing but an view encapsulation. So there will be two types, three types actually. So you'll be having encapsulation. So you can provide encapsulation. First one is the shadow DOM. Angular uses the browser built-in shadow DOM API to enclose the components view inside a shadow root. Okay, so that is nothing but a component host element. We have already seen it, right? So that is called as a shadow root, and apply the provided styles in an isolated manner. So it will apply to the elements in the shadow present in the shadow root only. Something like what I can say is, so it is something like emulated thing only. Emulated means which is a default behavior. Most browsers have so only the browsers which has the built-in support for the shadow DOM only. This thing will work. So view encapsulation, okay, dot shadow DOM. So this is the shadow DOM. So only the browsers which has the built-in support for the shadow DOM only, this one will work. But not all the browsers have the support for the shadow DOM. So we can use the emulated version. Okay, emulated version means nothing but the default version which you have seen. Okay, so this is the default version. So now default version means each component has its own styles. Encapsulation. So now encapsulation. So the default one is, I have told you, right, view encapsulation dot emulated. So this is the default version. So if you don't want this default version means you can use the none option. Okay, so none option I have used it. Now I haven't implemented anything dot box, but here we have implemented dot box border, this one, and I want to check the, and I have also applied in another component the same class. Now if you try to see the output, okay, for all the boxes we are able to apply the border. See, so I have written in one component that box thing, and I'm able to apply it in all the components. Now if you try to see the inspect element, okay, here you will be able to see it, right? So now the class which we have seen it here, so that doesn't have an attribute. What is that attribute? We can say it as the attribute ng content, these things we don't have this one. So now if you go into this users list, okay, into this users list, somewhere you will be having, right, that h3 also app users, this h3, and also if you go into this one app user, and for this one also the box you are having, right? So for this one also it is applying automatically. So now for the CSS preprocessors, whenever you try to apply this encapsulation none, so it will the CSS which you have written in this one will apply to all the components. So just like the global CSS, if you mention this one as an emulated, okay, so emulated, so this one is a default behavior. So if you want to mention it as emulated, so there is no need to mention that one. So the default one is an emulated only. So this is the view encapsulation of the CSS in the Angular. Okay, we have learned the view encapsulation of the Angular. So three types will be there: emulated, shadow DOM, okay, and also none. So these are the three options which we have learned. So the second one what I want to explain you is local reference. So about the local reference, we can also call it as an template variables. Okay, so these are called as an template variables. Template variables in the Angular. How the template variables behaves in the Angular? Let's try to see it. Let's try to create a component. Okay, I will go here and I am creating a component, create user. Okay, create user. So let's try to create a user. Now user has been created. Now what I will try to do is, so let's go to the create user. Now let's go to the HTML part. So we know the concept, something like, I will try to give it div, and I will try to give input type is equal to text. So this is the text, and what I can do is, so here I can do something like or create user, and let's try to do something like row call -md-6. Okay, so we'll be having a div like this, and what I want to do is, so here I will be having m by 3. So I will create a button. Okay, so add user. So we'll be having a button here. So now, so we are having this one, right? Now what I want to do is, so whenever I click on this user, I want to get the details of this one. So if I try to go to the app component.html, so let's try to show create hyphen user. So let's try to see the output. So here we are able to see a create user and all those things. Now let's try to apply something like hyphen 5. So it is too much talk. Okay, so now here we are having like this, or otherwise what I can say, create hyphen user, right? So class is equal to, so form control, I can use this one. Okay, now if I try to go here, so we are able to see a create user, and in this create user, whenever I write something and I click on this add user, I want to capture that name and I want to capture the details and I need to show it down. So what is the common procedure we'll be doing? So up to now what we have learned. So here you will be trying to write username of type string, okay, is equal to empty. We can do it. And here if you want to have, so you can add an ng model, or otherwise we already seen about the input thing. So $event you will try to take it, or otherwise what I will try to do is, so ng model. So we have learned about the two-way data binding. So here I can write ng model is equal to, so we will give that username. So in order to have this ng model to work, what we need to do, we need to inject the forms module. Okay, forms module. So we have injected the forms module. Let's go to the here. So in ng mod username. So now whenever the user clicks on this one, click is equal to on add user. Okay, so here I will try to take this one. So normally what I will, create user component.html, right? So I will go to here, and here I can see on add user. What is happening here? Yeah, on add user. So here I can do console.log this dot username. So this is the normal process which we have learned up to now. The concepts what we have learned up to now, using those concepts we have implemented. Now if I try to go here and if I try to see the inspect element, okay, so here, so if I click on this one, so we are able to get the value. So that's fine. So now somehow what we are trying to do here what we are trying to do, we are somehow, what we are trying to do is, somehow we are making use of this TypeScript class file, component class file, in order to interact with the template we are doing. So without using the class file, we can get the value. How we can get it is, so for example, so this is nothing but a call as a template variable. So let's say that we are having this input value, right? So what I can do here, here I can use something like local reference. Okay, so local reference string is one hash username. So you can mention it like this, and you can use this one. Okay, and you can use this one. So something like, let's say that you will be having an ng model. Okay, so that is the username you are having, right? So let's keep it like that only. So we are having a hash username. So I have given a local reference name for this one. So for this element, I have given a local reference name. Now what I want to do is, I will remove this button thing and all those things. Now what I will try to do is, I will try to do, okay, so what I will try to do is, here I will try to take username dot value. Okay, so that is nothing but what I can say is reference. Okay, let's say it as a reference dot ref, whatever the name you want, you can mention it. So I will try to give ref here. Now if you try to see the output, so whatever the thing I write it here, so I am able to get the output. So without interacting with the TS file, so there is no need for me about the TS file. So I have implemented anything here. So without interacting with the, without having connection with the TypeScript file means the logic file or the class file, instance file, the component. So I am able to get the value using the template itself. So these are called as template variables. So template variables help you use data from one part of a template in another part of a template. So here the template meaning sense means, so you need to understand the templates in Angular, how the template will behave. So this total thing is a template. I will try to tell you the concept. Okay, So using the template variables, these are called as template variables. To perform tasks such as response to the user input or finely tune your application forms, these are all the things you'll be using this template variable. So you'll try to see about this more about these template variables when you are trying to learn about the forms concept. Okay. A template variable can refer to any of the following. So you can use this template variable to any of the elements. Something like, first of all, this DOM element. So DOM element means nothing but this input element is a DOM element. Or otherwise you can also apply to a component or a directory also. For example, let's say that I am having a here app-users. This is one component, right? You can also apply this one to this one also. So and also we can get this one. And also we can also apply it to the template reference also. So nothing but ng-template. So we already learned about this one. ng template, ng container, these things. We can also apply this one to we can also apply this template variable to this one. But accessing these variables, how you apply to the different types of elements, to a different types of components or the elements or anything, so behaves in a different way. So that is the main thing you need to understand. Now you have learned what is the thing, right? So how we can get the values, we have seen it. So now what I want to tell you is another one, template variable scope. Just like the variables, how you will be having in the JavaScript, the TypeScript code, you will be having the variables, right? They will be having a scope. In the same scenario, this template variables also has the scope. So something like structural directives. We have seen about the structural directives. ng if, ng for, okay, ng for or ng template. So these have a separate scope. So now what you can do is, what I can tell you is, always what I can say is we can access a template variable from a child scope, from a parent scope into the child scope, but we cannot access the template variable in the child scope to the parent scope. So I think I will try to explain you. For example, let's say that I have applied here ng if, okay, ng if is equal to true. I am making it as a true. Now if you try to see here, this is one template scope, okay, this is one template scope, and whenever you mention this ng if is equal to true, so whatever the content we are having here, this is another template scope. So for example, let's say that let x is equal to 1 in JavaScript. If x is equal to 1, if you are having, and if you try to see y is equal to 1 or something like that, means, so this is nothing but an if scope, okay, this is another scope, and this entire thing is another scope. So like this, in the same scenario, so here also you will be having a template scope. This is one scope and ng if is another scope. So now this variable is defined in the parent scope and you can access in the child scope without any problem. But for example, the same scenario, if it comes something like okay, something like I will use in a such a way that, so I am making this one as an internal scope, okay, I am making this one as an internal scope, and I am assigning this one to the value #ref, and I want to use it in another scope. So now let's say that this is a parent scope. If I remove this one, this is a parent scope. Now I cannot access this ref value. Okay, why? Because so this is present in the parent scope and you have created in the child scope. So child to parent, it will not traverse. So this is one of the design pattern you need to understand, the template scope variables, how it will behave. So you cannot pass from child to parent. You can pass it from the parent to child. So here ng if you have given means in this parent, this is one scope actually. In that scope, you have created a template variable and you are accessing out of the scope. So that is nothing but in the parent scope you are trying to access. So this will not work. So sometimes all the people when we are developing large scale applications, so they will try to use this template variable in the ng if or something like that. They want to access this one outside, so they cannot access. This is total in one template only, but the scopes will differ. So that is the main thing you need to understand. Okay, so this is one of the concept I want to tell you. So now here we have understood about the, where I can say, local reference hash element, how this template variables behaves. So when you declare on the element, it will become an element ref. So that is nothing but an element. So when you are using for a component, it will become a component instance. So if I want to show you, for example, let's say that we are using this create user only, right? Let's try to add one div variable, okay, and here I want to use app-users, okay, and here I will try to give something like user component. For this one, this is a users component. If I try to show you the output, so here we are able to see the users component data. So we are able to see all the users component data. We are able to see it. For this component, what I have did here, I have did the hash user. Now let's try to add a button. Okay, so this button, add user or something like this. Okay, and when I try to click on this one, so on add user, I will try to use this one on add user. Now I will pass this user template to this one. So now let's try to see how this one will behave. So this is our create user, right? So now if I try to use on add user of user, we are getting something. So let's try to make it as any, so that we'll try to see what is the correct type it will be. So if I try to use this user, then you will understand. So here if I try to make it, so we are having these all the component, and here we are having a button add user. Let's go to the inspect element, and if you try to see the console here, if I click on this add user, see this time instead of getting an element, we are getting the component instance. Okay, so all the component which is having the data, so we are able to get it. So here the selected user is null, right? So I will click on this in this component itself. I will click on select user. So now I will click on the add user again. Okay, if I click on this add user, now this selected user, whatever the click I have clicked it, so without communicating with the input and output, I am able to get the selected user in the create user component. Okay, so I am able to get the details. I am able to communicate, or otherwise I am able to get the details, whatever the things present in the users component, into the create user component without using the input and output. So you need to understand this concept. So using the template variable, so we can also communicate with the components also. So now without having any input and output, app-users is able to share the data with this component. So with the parent components, from child to the parent. So with the from child to the parent, we are able to communicate it with the using the template variable. In the same scenario, if I try to use this hash ref here, okay, and I want to pass this ref here. So now what it will happen? So now what will this? Sorry. Now what will be this? Where is this one? Yeah, what will be the users thing? So let's try to console.log here. So this time I am sending the input element, I think. So if I click on this add user, see, now I am able to get a DOM element. Okay, I am able to get a DOM element. So depending on the situation where you are applying the template variable to the component, so in that scenario, it will behave you. So that is the thing you need to understand. So first time when I try to send this one, it has applied in the user component, the users component. This time the ref is applied on the DOM element. So depending on the template which you have assigned, it will behave differently. So now when you have applied for the ref, we are able to get the HTML input element, right? So the type for this one, so I told you already in the TypeScript, we should not, it's not recommended to use the any. So here it will be a HTML input element. Okay. So if you want to get the value, you can get user.value. So like this, you can get it. So now if I try to apply the same thing, so here I will try to write something here. So this is the input element we are trying to get it, right? So down somewhere in the down, we are having this add user. If I click here, I'm able to get the value from here. So without using the ng model and all those things, I'm able to get the value here. So this is the template variable. And for example, if I pass this user here, you will get immediately an error here. Why? Because the component, the template user, when you're trying to use, it will not send you the HTML document. The DOM element, it will not send you the DOM element. What it will try to send you? It will try to send you the users component. Okay. So now in this users component, I will be having a selected user. I can use this selected user. Let me try to refresh. What is this one? Okay. So what is this ref it is saying? Okay, I didn't save it. So now let's try to see it. Now this time, so when I click on the add user, I am getting null. Why I'm getting, why I'm getting null? First time the user hasn't selected anything. Okay, the first time you selected user, nothing is selected. So now I will click on this ID 6 person 5. I will click on this select user. So now I will click on the add user. See now the selected user which was selected. So I'm able to get it to the parent element from the child element without interaction with the input and output. I'm able to get this one. Okay, this is what about the template variables. So these are local reference variables, so which you can interact in the template itself without the use of the TypeScript class. So this is one of the important concepts which we will be using more often. So this is one of the concepts. This is about the template variables. So declaring a component, according to that one, it behaves as a component instance. So when you apply an ng template, it will have a template reference. and template scope, so which we will be using more, not very rare, this template ref. If you want, you can also practice, apply the local reference for the ng template and check what is the template ref you are getting. And template scope, we have seen how the template scope. So template scope means in the ng if how we can use this ref value. So if you declare that local reference variable in the ng if and you want to access in the parent, you cannot do it. So that is the template scope. Next one comes is the important thing, that is nothing but a view child. So now view child concept. So this is the view child concept. So what is this view child? View child one, what I can say is now up to now this hash ref I am trying to pass it to the user. Sorry, hash user, I am trying to pass it to the user. Through the user, I am trying to get it. Sometimes we get a situation that, so let's try to remove this button thing and all those things, or otherwise let's try to keep it. We'll try to remove this one. Sometimes we get into a situation that this is a component instance. Okay, this is called as a component. This is a component template. Sometimes the component wants to talk to the template. Okay, so if the component wants to talk to the template, the thing is we will be using ng model. These are the concepts we will try to do. But sometimes what it wants to get it wants to get the DOM element, HTML element, whatever the thing. It wants to get the element. So it wants to talk to this element, or it wants to get this element in that logic file, so that I can make use of that. I can make use of that element and I can do whatever I want. So in order to capture that element, what I can do is, up to now what we are trying to say, in order to send it to the TypeScript file, so we are sending it to the element. Okay, we are sending it to the method, so that we are injecting into the whenever the user has clicked on the button, then only I am able to capture that element. So now what we can see is, using the view child, we can also get the template, this template element in the TypeScript file. How we can get is, so here you need to mention hash view child. Okay, at the view child, this should be imported from the Angular core. So here you need to mention the reference variable. So that is nothing but a ref. Okay, so ref, you need to mention it, and you can give whatever the name you want. So whatever the name you want means, so nothing but what I can say is input element. So input element. Okay, so this one you will get of type, this is of type element ref. Okay, so element reference, you will get an element reference. Okay, so here it will be asking you in the TypeScript that must and should you need to provide. So I will keep a bang operator. So that's it. So now you got the, you are able to capture the input element in the, from the template to the logic file. Now if you click on this one, on click add user, on add user. So now for you, there is no need to pass this ref into this one. So why? Because we already captured in the logic file. So now you can go to into this one. So here you can say on add user. So now here let's try to see whatever is the value, console.log. Okay, so this dot input element, right? So input element, so this is the input element, we have got it. Now let's try to go into this create component.html. Let's try to place this button at the top, because this app users component is very big. So let's try to move, see. So if I try to show you the output, let's go to the top. Hey, why it is going down? Yeah. So now here we are able to see the input element we have already captured in the TypeScript, and I am clicking on this add user. So I am writing something, and if I click on this add user, I'm able to get an element ref. Okay, this is the reference element. So TypeScript will get you. So in this reference element ref, this is actually a wrapper. So element ref is a wrapper for the HTML input element. So now if you try to see here, you will be having some Angular methods and all those things. Inside this one, you will be able to see a native element. So if I try to capture this native element and you will try to see it, what will happen? So these all things might look a little bit new to all of you, but these are important things. So now if I click on this one, if I try to capture this one, and if I click on this add user, now see how we have sent that one from the, what I can say, from the as a parameter. The same thing I'm able to catch it without sending. So input element, we got it. Now if I want to get this one, for example, let's say I want to get this one. So now here I can get the value using dot value. That's it. So previously we used to get here user of type HTML input element, and we are able to get that user dot value. So this time I have captured this one at the top side only through the TypeScript code, and I am trying to say the dot value. Now if I try to here use it, so now I am able to get the same output. So now what you need to understand is another important thing here when we are trying to use this one. So we are having an ng model bind to the username, right? So let's try to see that what is the username for this one. Okay, let's try to say here in this HTML only, here at the bottom only. Okay, two-way, I will try to use the username here. So username two-way value. So here you will be able to see the output two-way. So first time the input nothing is there, so we are able to see it. Now I am trying to change, here I am able to get it. So this is the logic two-way data binding and all those things. When I click on the user, I am able to get the same value without using this variable. I am using the template reference variable. So fine, everything is fine. So now don't ever try to modify this name. So now you got that label value. So now normally in the JavaScript, what you will try to do, so document dot element by get element by class name of something like that, dot value is equal to, so you will try to change the name. So like this, you will try to change the name to Leela. Okay, so don't ever try to do this one in the Angular. These things if you try to do it, so you will lose the features of all the Angular. I will try to show you the same scenario. Now I have changed the value of the input element. So this input element I have changed it. So that means automatically that the two-way binding, which is dependent on this input variable, also has to change. So now if I try to use this one, so whatever the input box it is having, the same thing it is having, right? When I click on this add user, see the input box has changed to Leela, but the username variable is still ADASD like this only. Now the two-way binding, the ng model which you are trying to use it here, so everything gone. So this one is not working as expected. So this will lead to a weird behavior when you are trying to apply. So don't ever try to write the native HTML code in the Angular when you are trying to use the Angular features. So this is nothing but what I am trying to do here. Up to here I am getting the native element on, right? Something like you are trying to write the document dot get element by ID, something like this. So you can apply by ID and you will try to do the ref thing and all those things. Dot value you will try to do it. So now this ref thing, what you will try to do, so instead of using this hash ref, you will try to do ID is equal to ref. So now you will try to access with ref. So same thing, but I am showing you how we can access this one using the template variable. So instead of using this ID and all those things doing, so don't ever try to do. So this is the same thing you are trying to do it. Okay. So here you can keep it as HTML. Where is this one? Input element, and you can get this one. See. So now if you try to same thing, this is the same thing which we are trying to do it. For example, if I try to see, so everything is changing. If I click on here it has changed, but here it is not changed. Why? Because you are doing the same thing. So here you are trying to apply these all the things. Up to now what you have applied, these things you should not ever apply this one in the Angular. So this will lead to a weird behavior. So that is the thing I want to show you. So now whenever you want to try this ng model somewhere else, you have changed it through the native JavaScript DOM implementation, and you are expecting this two-way variable also to change everywhere wherever you are using. So this will not happen it like this. If you are trying to change with the document.getElement by ID like this, means wherever the reference you are using, you need to change it manually only. So that one will become a painful thing. So that is the thing I can tell you. So this is about the view child. So how we can access the template element variable using the view child. So now the same scenario, the same thing comes with the here also. So for example, let's say that we have used hash ref, right? And here we are having hash user, right? So here the same thing you can use it. So here I can use the user, and this time this is a user component, right? So I will try to place it. I will try to name it as user component. So now this one is not an element ref. You need to understand that this is not an element ref. So users component, I will try to name it like this, or otherwise users, let's say. So this is not an element ref. We know that this is a component, right? So users component, you need to mention it as users component. This time what you need to do here on add user, so you need to do console.log this dot users. If you try to do this dot users, now you will try to understand the output. I'll let whatever thing. So but I are using that users only. So now here see, this time you got an users component, not the users element reference. Okay. But if you want to get an element reference, for example, let's say that this users component is nothing but I have applied to an element, HTML element, whether it may be a custom element or anything. So this is a custom element, whether it is a custom element or anything. So this is a component That is the reason Angular can able to identify this is a component. I need to return the component instance for that one instead of returning the component element. Here it is a DOM HTML element, so that is the reason. So there is no instance for this one. It has written the HTML element, but here this Angular knows that this is a component. Instead of returning this element, it is returning the component instance. But if you want only the Angular template only, I don't want this component instance. I want to play with this Angular element. Element in that HTML element. It's not an HTML element, that is a custom element. I want to play this one means. So you have an option, read, and this one will take an element ref. Okay. So you can have so many options, element ref, directive, like that you will have. And here you can mention it as an element ref. Now this time this one will become an element ref. Now let's try to see users how it will behave. So now if I try to show you the output, this time see you got element ref, and that too that is an app user. See, so these are HTML. I am able to get it instead of getting this component. I can get it. This HTML element I can get. I got it. So I can play with it one whatever I want. So using this native element and your documents, JavaScript, these are DOM elements functions is there, right? You can play it. So this is how we can use the view shell. So many concepts are there in the view shell, how we can use it in the different ways. But I have told you how the communication will go on and how this read option will work, and all those things I have explained you. So this is more than enough. So still more concepts are there. Right concept, these all the things are there. I don't want to explain you. I don't want to confuse you more. So this is all about the view shell, how we can use it in a different ways. So the next important one comes is the ng content. Okay, so this is also one of the important thing, ng content. Let's try to understand what is this ng content. So we are having this create user, right? Let's say that we are having only a div element. Okay, and here we can have this one, Leela. Okay, so this create user component we are using in the app component.html. So in between this opening and closing tag, opening tag and the closing tag, so we haven't mentioned anything. So we are not mentioning anything, and the implementation of this component HTML data is implemented here. So that means what the Angular does here, it will try to, for example, if you try to see here, where is this one gone? Inspect element. If you try to see here, so this is the app create user which is present in the app component HTML, and in this one, so in between this opening and closing tag, if you try to see, the HTML what you have written in that component has been injected. Okay, so that means we haven't written anything in this one. Where is that app component HTML? Yeah, we haven't written anything in this, in between this one, but the content got injected. Where that content got is nothing but here. Okay, so instead of writing it here, I can remove this one, and I can also write in between this one. Okay, I can write in between this one. Instead of writing it in a separate component, I can write it here. So how can I get the output? So let's try to see the output. First, if you try to see here, first time you will not able to see the output, right? So why? Because Angular by default what it will try to do is it will try to what I can say, render this template only. So whatever the content you are writing in between this template, so it will not work. So what we need to do here, so we need to tell to the Angular in this template that, so render the content whatever is there between the opening and the closing tag. So for this one, what we will try to do is here, we will try to write ng content. Okay, so this ng content, if you try to mention here, I will try to write start, okay, and end. So wherever you want to place this content, you can place it. So now if I try to place it, if I try to do it, see here, hi Leela, whatever the thing I have written at that time, at the place in the root component, I have used it here. So this is about the content projection. We will call it as an actually content projection. So content projection is nothing but it is a pattern. Actually, this is also one type of pattern in Angular, which you can insert or project the content you want to use inside another component. Okay, so there are normally three types of content projection are there. One is a single slot content projection, another one is a multi-slot content projection, the last one is a conditional content projection. So we have what is the thing we have seen is then single slot content projection. Single slot means only one element will be present and we will be placing that element only in one place only. So for example, let's say that where is this app component? So here I am having this div and I am having another div. Okay, so here I will place, I want to place it at the last. Okay, so this content should be placed at the last and this content should be placed at I want to place at the beginning. Okay, so this content should be placed at the beginning. Now if you try to see the output, so if you try to see the output, here, so this should be placed at the beginning and this should be placed at the last, but start and end as is there at the beginning and the end, but these are not placed at the beginning and the last. So but this should be placed. So here if you try to see the code, so ng content is placed in between the start and end. Because of that reason, it is placing at the start only. For example, if I go this one and if I place it at the top, okay, so if I try to see here, so we will be able to see the output that I want to place it at the beginning. Fine, this element has came. I want to place it at the last. This one should be placed at the last, but this one is also at the beginning. This should be at the end. So how can we make this one? So this is called as an multi-slot content projection. So in this scenario, what we will try to do is, so we will try to maintain a slots. Okay, so if you don't, so slots means what I can say is something like, we will have a ng content here. This is default content, and at the end we need to place it, right? So we can present ng content here. So here you will be having a select. So you'll give you a select, and here you will give a question or something like that. Whatever the name you want, you can give it. So this one you can place it in the app component.html. Okay, so what is the content you want to place it? So this is the content you want to place it, right? So you can mention this one as a question. That's it. So now if you try to see the output, so here see this part has came at the last and this part has came at the beginning. So now if you have anything, so for example, let's say that after this one is also will be at the beginning. Why? Because this is a default one, so this doesn't have any attribute here, question. So now if you try to see, that one also will be at the top. Okay, this one also will be at the beginning. So whatever the things you mention with the tag of question here, okay, so this one also, so last finally, or otherwise I want to place it at the top. Okay, I placed it at the top. So now if you try to see here, so this one also will be at the last only. Okay, last finally, this is also at the last. So wherever you are placing the ng content, this is not coming at the top. So this is about the ng content. If you want to place whatever the things between the open and the close tag, and you can use it using the ng content, single slot and the multi slot. There is also another thing, conditional rendering content projection. So that is not recommended in the Angular to use. If you want this, you can see it. So, but I will not explain it. That will be a somewhat little bit difficult using the ng template and all those things you need to understand. Ng template outlet. So we need to reference the outlet information template ref. These all things we need to use. So that is a different thing. So we'll see afterwards. So if you are, those are deep dives, advanced thing. These are the basic thing in the content projection. So this is all about the ng content. Okay. Where is this one? So this is all about the ng content. So these are the different types of ng content thing.